And now the New York Times reports money anxiety is back on the rise.
Money is one of the most stressful and necessary parts of our lives that we'll ever have to deal with.
COVID-19 has battered the global economy, causing the worst recession since the Great Depression of the 1930s. COVID causing the worst.
And now the New York money anxiety is back on the rise.
Worst.
Lately, I've been feeling a lot of anxiety about money. I want to make it clear that I'm not complaining. I know that in a lot of ways, I'm incredibly fortunate. And so I'm very grateful for that. But nonetheless, I've always felt some measure of anxiety towards money. So obviously, I didn't actually throw my phone away there. I've been using an old phone for way too long to give this one up when I've finally upgraded to a new phone. So hopefully I didn't stress too many of you out there. But the fact that we can feel what we call stress has always intrigued me. I've constantly been curious about why we can feel these types of responses inside of ourselves. And so I began to explore that question. Why do we feel stress in the first place? This led me to understand something actually very important. Humans are built to be stressed. Whether we like it or not, deep within our bodies we have what is known as the fight or flight response. This response is governed by a series of systems inside of our body, like the sympathetic nervous system and our HPA axis. You can think of the HPA axis like a gas pedal to our stress response. For much of our existence, this response was actually very useful. A simple walk in the forest wasn't as safe as it is today. There could be hidden dangers lurking behind every turn. And upon facing a real danger, our body would essentially turn on this special response. Our heart rate would increase, we would take in more air, our sight, hearing, and other senses become sharper. We're ready to fight, or at least run away very quickly. But what if we didn't actually have to fight when our stress response was triggered? What if we were just simply checking our bank account statement or receiving a phone call from our boss? The problem with our stress response in the modern world is it's interpreting emails as rattlesnakes and numbers on a computer screen as mountain lions. And so our stress response gets triggered and triggered and triggered. Our foot never really comes off of the gas. Harvard Health states that chronic low-level stress keeps the HPA axis activated, much like a motor that is idling too high for too long. After a while, this has an effect on the body that contributes to the health problems associated with chronic stress. I think another reason that money might cause us a lot of anxiety is that it's increasingly becoming disconnected from our physical reality. In the span of just one single generation, we've gone from having money that is very physical, it's very tactile, to having money that's almost entirely digital. In the turn of a century, we've gone from goods and services being priced in numbers that our mind can actually comprehend to the point where $1 million is not even enough to set you up to be secure in life. About 100 years ago, you could actually purchase a home for a couple $1,000s. Now, I'd like you to take a second and try and imagine inside your mind 1,000 of something. Might be a little tricky, right? And that's because rarely do we ever actually see with our eyes 1,000 individual pieces of something, perhaps unless it's something very small. But 1,000 is still somewhat of an imaginable number. To our mind, it seems like a lot of something, but we can kind of still imagine it. So it's fitting that a house might cost a couple $1,000s. But today, where I currently live, a very basic home will set you back about $1 million. Now take a second and try and imagine 1 million of something. Having a hard time? That's because it really can't be done. The problem is we have no frame of reference of which to basically equate to 1 million of anything. Unless we're talking blades of grass in a park or grains of sand on a beach, it's very hard to actually understand what 1 million of something means. And what about how we actually spend our money? We're not exactly traveling around with coin purses like we did in the olden days. No, nowadays we just tap a flimsy piece of plastic against another piece of plastic and boom, we've magically somehow bought something. But once again, is this really something our minds can actually comprehend? Is it at all the same as walking into a store, seeing maybe a loaf of bread for $5 on the shelf, then you take out your money, you count out your $5, and then you pay for it? In this case, you would have immediate visual feedback because when you're looking at your money, as soon as you take that $5 out, well, you can see how much now that you have left. So you know exactly how much of your wealth you'll be spending on this bread. And if it's bread that costs $5, then I mean, let's be honest, it better be pretty good bread. But speaking for myself at least, I almost never pay for anything with cash. So I never actually get to see this visual representation of what's actually happening to my money. And this is not just true of money. In some of the wealthier countries of the world, we use water, electricity, natural gas, and other resources without really ever knowing how much we actually use. I think part of it is because we don't physically get to see the full story. I can turn on my tap, and to my eyes, it looks like water just magically flows. But my eyes looking at the faucet doesn't tell me where the water flows from. They also can't tell me how much water is actually available at the source. I'm obviously no expert, but to me, it seems at least some of our environmental issues stem from our disconnection with the natural world. We don't know where our food comes from, where our water comes from, our electricity, and so on. And in the same way, I think a lot of our anxieties and stresses about money may at least be due in part to our disconnection from money as something that we can all understand. But on the other hand, the very things that have caused us to become disconnected from our money and our resources has been the same things that have allowed us to connect, thrive, and share with one another more than ever before. Innovations in the financial world has undoubtedly brought financial services to more people than at any point in history. The fact that there are so many young people interested in personal finance is something that I have never witnessed in my entire life. I mean, when I was a student, I was one of the very few people who was really into, the stock market, but now it seems like almost everyone is at least somewhat curious. So I suppose ultimately, it's a double-edged sword. And it poses the question, how do we continue to make money more open, transparent, and accessible to everyone, while at the same time not making it so unreal that we disconnect from it entirely? I guess this is something we'll have to continue to explore.